I'm actually in criminology, which is part of the Faculty of Law, and my usual day job is to market research in violence prevention. So today's theme is quite cozy and it's quite lovely. And the good thing about this is that you can go and see it. So no lockdown applies to this garden. And hopefully, if people want, Jenny can share the slide, because as you can see, I put a little map. This community garden is based not far from the Botanic Garden, and it's in an empty space, just at the beginning of Brooklands Avenue. There is a black gate, and you can just walk through and look at it anytime you like. So I gave this talk last year, and probably the year before, and I took people there, and I'm hoping that when things get back to some sort of normal, I can take people again to the garden. I changed the slide a bit, so if you've seen it before, it will be a bit different. So this is the information I gave for the visitors, and I'm trying to explain about allotments. So the empty common community garden is situated at the bottom of some allotments. So if you go there, you'll have to walk through all the allotments, and then you will see the garden at the end with the flag. We got flag with the earth. And the allotments is, I think, is quite a British thing in the way they've been set up, and it's an historic sort of setup going back to Anglo-Saxon time. And the idea is that usually it's a land that is not wanted for whatever reason, and the council leases it to people, so you pay a little small rent, and you can have your little plot. I see I got a picture here, which could be quite small or big depending on the size of the allotments. And it was very popular in the past, and especially during the Dig for Victory campaign, because during the war, people were encouraged to turn every sort of land, including garden, into vegetable plots to deal with the shortage of fresh vegetable. And so there were a lot of allotment plots back then. But today, we're only down to 300,000 from the 1.5 million during the war. And I found this recent estimate, and it says that at the moment, there are 52 people waiting for 100 plots. So there is so much demand, and there isn't enough land for everyone. Then people are on waiting lists, sometimes waiting for years to get your little plot. Right, so since last time I gave the talk, the Empty Common Community Garden has joined a group of, I'm not sure you can see this map, is a bit, it's not that, it's a bit bright, but the Botanic Garden, which is part of the university, has set up a group of growing gardens. And here there is, if you go on this website, you will see that there is a map, and this is the map of all the community gardens in Cambridge. So if you manage to go there, or the Cambridge Community Group Net, or you may even Google it, and also on our blog, you will find there is this map, and the gardens are truly everywhere throughout Cambridge, and some of them are limited access, but most of them you can just walk in and have a look. So if you're interested, the good thing about this community garden is there is no waiting list to join. So we had quite a few people from the university, people living in flats, who decided, oh, what happened now? I need to restart. So they decided to join us. So what happens is, like, if you go on our blog or contact any of this garden, you just say you want to come. The only problem is now, because of COVID, you won't be allowed to have big groups. And I'm not sure now with the current regulation is going to be a bit tricky, but if with the empty common, I suspect there will be a person, you contact the organizer and somebody will turn up to help you to unlock the sheds, because everything, all the tools are locked. And then you have to bring your own gloves and your own sanitizer, and hopefully, you can do a little bit of garden. But if since at the moment the guidance keep changing, maybe you just want to have a walk there and have a look around and maybe register interest later on. Right, so the Empty Common Community Garden follows permaculture principles of growing. So there are a lot of way of growing, and I come from Italy, and as everyone coming from another country will find that the growing season in the UK is very different because they go different seasons. But the great thing about permaculture is that they manage to grow things all year round, because our winter is not as cold. Believe me, from my part of Italy, it's so cold, you can't grow a thing in winter when it goes to -10 and there is snow. But in this country, you can manage to grow some crops in the dead of winters, like cabbages or some hardy salads. So there will be always something you can grow. And the idea is to be very environmental friendly. So care for the earth, it means you don't use any pesticide, you don't use weed killers, you don't use any pellets for the slugs or anything that people use. You try to use other remedies, maybe for the slug, crushed eggshells or copper, or there are all these alternative ways to get rid of the pest. Apparently washing up liquid is very good. Did you know that? I just found out you can spray washing up liquid diluted on, and it kills some bugs. And the other thing is the care for the people. So the Empty Common encourages everyone to join, and because it has areas like beds, so which are okay if you can, if you got all your skills, if you can bend, but you also got like raised beds which are built at a certain height, so people with disabilities can access, although I suspect the access road to the garden is pebbled, so it's not, I wouldn't say it's really very wheelchair friendly, but you can cycle there, and you can, and we had people with different kind of abilities. We also had people who came for the mental health, because it's to be outside, to just be in the fresh air, to be doing something. So we are open to everyone, all ages, and there are gardening tools for children as well. And so we are trying to be very inclusive. The other thing is the Empty Common Garden follows is recycling anything. And as you can see the photos going forward, you will see that we recycle an amazing amount of materials. And right, so this is like a few highlights. So if you see 2013 is when it was like a barren, so there was nothing there, because there was a really insidious weed there, oilstale weed. Nobody in the allotments wanted it, so it was a bit of land at the bottom of these allotments which nobody wanted. So the council helped, and Charlotte, our coordinator, and volunteers from different charities, from the university, from the Prince's Trust, from a lot of companies, there's AstraZeneca there. So people come and help, and the council came, and they managed to, as you can see, looks so kind of okay in the first photo, but if there was nothing there. So then we sort of moving on, and we started to have even like these logs to sitting down on. We start to have a polytunnel in 2015. This was built by university hands, specifically postdoctoral researchers, and they took time out of the labs and they came and built this polytunnel, which is quite big. And then they obviously moved on, and they kind of keep in touch with us through the blog. So there's another project to the university. You can see this little hut there underneath. This is the Faculty of Architecture. Originally, we got a grant to build a meeting hut. So we wanted somewhere because we could do workshop, events, and they had this grand idea, Faculty of Architecture. They really came in, the students were very enthusiastic. And we did manage to get some money from the council, but then unfortunately, as things happen, the council put quite a lot of restriction on what we could do with this hut, because any public money, you have to keep the hut open to the public for certain amounts of time. And it was very difficult because we are a small group of volunteers, and for us it was very difficult to be able to accept the grant and also build something as grand as this. So the students had a kind of exercise, they did a project, but then we had to find an alternative. And I will talk about it in a bit, about what we're doing. And this bit, this is hiding in between this greenery here. It's our coordinator, Charlotte Singe. She is the person, if we got the email address, the blog, the telephone number, she's the person to contact if you would like to join us. And I do the mailing list, and I do the blog, and then we have like a Google group, and we have a wiki. So that's how we communicate between ourselves, because in the summer you have to have a watering rota, so people go to water. No need now, because we can't let it stop. We never seen such a wet time in Cambridge ever. If you're new here, it usually doesn't rain this much. So we don't need that, just for the polytunnel. And I managed to recommend Charlotte for like all of work she puts in to the Independent as one of these people who creates happiness in people's lives. They have an happiness list in 2018. And they featured us among other people working for charity as happiness creator. She does create happiness, and she's a really lovely, positive person. So this is something I showed last year. And there is this thing in the UK where people exhibit root vegetable they grow in root shapes. So that's one, quite apart. And we have here a link to a video. So we have a video from a local radio. They came to do a video for the YouTube channel, and also there is a video made by a filmmaker which tells the history of the garden. All these are available to see on the blog, and these are a few things. So that's a filming party. So this is where we are making a fast burning compost heap. This was a workshop to make a compost heap, which is like putting all plants and leaves and grass clipping, and then in a pile, and maybe covered with a carpet, and then it sort of degrades until it becomes soil. So that's me, the little pink jacket. So as you can see, the compost heap was taller than me when we made it, and a little pink. And this is the new shed. So we changed the shed, and these lovely people volunteered to build it. So I'm quite always amazed how we managed to get going and find people who can help us to do all this work unpaid. And then when they move on, they leave it for other people to use and enjoy. Right, what I'm going to show you now is some of the season of the garden, and the last one will be this here. So you will see that despite COVID, we did have a growing season going on this year. So this is back in 2016 and 2017, and we see it's winter time, and we had, at the moment, it's just hard to believe it, but Cambridge is full of events. And there is this Cambridge Sustainable Food, CSF, that does a lot of events. So in winter, they used to do this pumpkin festival, and we took part of it. And you see this child, this boy, trying to grab an apple. So this was our version of bobbing an apple. So we stuck an apple with a string from a tree, and he's trying to grab it. And that year we planted apple trees. And this is when we started building our toilet. So we do have a toilet. It's a compost toilet, and it's got a lock, so it's not open to everyone to use. And it's it's basically a hole, and so you can go to the toilet there, and then, it's sort of, somebody has to empty the toilet, and it goes in another heap. So we have a lot of heaps all around scattered, not in the compost heap, it goes in another pile. So here we got a photo, postgraduate student, that they help us roll those logs we saw before, used for the party. And then we have a photo of the Burwell wheat. So what happened is there are type of agricultural grain or fruit, like you see the apple there, that are in extinction because commercial growing has reduced the amount of variety of fruit and vegetable that you can grow, because they just go for like a pest-friendly variety. So a lot of the older variety that may need more care, they've been phased out. So we actually volunteer to grow this old variety of wheat at some point. Let's move on into spring. So in the spring of that year, that's when our pond was dug. So we have a sitting area with a pond. So if you walk over there, there is a massive hawk that children like to climb, but there is a sitting area with a pond. And this man in the hall is, believe it or not, an agricultural expert from the university on the near side. And himself and his wife, they came for over a year just doing work in the garden and helping out. So leading out to summer, so I'm just conscious of time. As you can see, again, it was a very good year. So here we see again, trying to put they put like a green roof on top of the shed. We had another shed, a black shed, which was painted by a local artist. You can just see a little bit. And this is the sitting area. And also we have another event we did with Hobson Conduit BioBlitz, where we had like plant identification, a storytelling, leading to autumn. And that's our toilet. So look at this toilet carefully. Look at it. It's made of doors. Can you see there is a handle there? So what they did, the walls of the toilet are different doors that have been put together to form a cubicle. And there is also the time when we they went to thresh the wheat in a farm. And in the past, when there was no COVID, we had a lot of parties because we have like a barbecue, and we have also a kettle that runs on twigs. So you can put the twigs in, and it creates a fire, and then it boils the water. So leading to the winter, so this is when the architecture department came, and they presented the design we showed before. And another bit of recycling is near the robin. There, can you see there is like a round, sort of a round circle with some sticks going up. This is a trampoline. So we recycle a trampoline and built it into a bed to grow beans, because the beans go up on the sticks. And that's a picture of, look at it carefully, because you don't see snow very often in Cambridge, but in that winter we had some snow. So that is a trough where the water, there is no hose. We have to get the water to water everything from this trough, which is like an animal sort of drinking vessel. And it has iced over because it was such a cold winter. Moving on. So here, oh, that's me. So that's me in the university center. Remember what it looked like? The university center where we used to go there. And so that's me giving the same talk with slightly different slide in the university center. And that's, again, Ian, that's the couple who came back to see the barbecue. We had a yin-yang meadow. That's sort of quite, sounds like feng shui. And we had more sort of movies made of the garden. And then we have this artist who works with me in criminology called Rebecca, and she keeps carving. If you go there, she made some new carving. She carves wood, and she carves, she also painted this shed we have. So there is, and we had art exhibition in the garden as well when we could. So she makes a lot of lovely little art. And so this was the summer 2018. So when we got this grant, and then it proved to be too difficult for us to accept. So it was, so we were all excited, but then the conditions were impossible for us to continue, because we can't sort of keep it open and do all the public activity they were expecting to do. So although a lot of people come and use the garden, people ask us, and they use it for all sort of, so the woodcraft folk, for instance, the preschool group used to come. We had a preschool little bed for them to grow things. We also had women from Corona House. These are women, obviously these are the organizers. We couldn't show the women because they're vulnerable women. And the women came, this is a house for women suffering from domestic violence or homeless. And the women came and they joined the garden. They bought our barbecue. Other things we do the butterfly count, which was possible to do because somebody can just go there and count butterfly on their own. And we did a moth counting the moth. So somebody went at night. And because in England, there is like, there are websites where they collect results from various parts of England. And so just trying to do a survey of the wildlife. And there's another autumn. There's another autumn. Another autumn coming along, and we have a picture here which is quite interesting. We have a solitary bee home. Apparently, there are bees who don't like to be in a hive. They are solitary. They're introverts. I don't know. They're lonely. They don't want to be in the group. So we built this really strange little wooden sort of box where they go in and they can actually create a little home. And then in the summer, they go one by one, they go out. Obviously, the one towards the exit goes first, and then they gradually all come out, and we have provided a home for these solitary bees. And this is a shot of myself when we did the movie. There is a movie done of the garden, how we started, and a bit about Charlotte. And then again, another pumpkin season. Right, start again. So this is this year. So this is COVID. So for those who were not aware of this, our lockdown was in March. I always remember the last day anything was open was March the 20th. Then from March the 20th and until quite later on, certainly the university wasn't open until mid-September. So everything was shut. And so the winter was we still had events. So we still managed to do the seedling Sunday. So every January, and that's open for everyone. Obviously, it won't happen. I don't think it will happen this year. There is like a seed swap where you can go and swap seeds in Trumpington, and you pay a small fee and you can get seeds. So then you can grow them in your pots, so you can grow them if you got like a garden. And we had a store as well. And so we had a seed swap. And in winter, and also it happened this year, we also have less things growing, and we do like sort of housekeeping things like washing the polytunnel and clearing large roots. So they were preparing for the hut to be built, because we still want to build this hut. And we created a little video of photos, because we are again fundraising again, trying to fund money. And if you want to help us, the co-op, if you don't know if you shop at the co-op, is put us on a page, and you'll find that on the blog, on the latest blog. And if you vote, you can vote for us to get a grant from the co-op, among other causes. So we are hoping to get a grant from them now, because to build a hut. So just before COVID lockdown, our Charlotte, she managed to get a lot of scavenged bits and pieces for the hut. The idea is we found somebody who can build it for us without charging us. And the idea is to use the money of the co-op, which would be substantially less than what the council, if they granted to us, and build like a hut made of recycled bits and pieces. And as you see that in the spring of this year, the garden didn't know anything about COVID. The garden kept going. So we had daffodils, and these are the beds prepared for growing. So here, this interesting bit. So this is full on COVID time. So what happened, what we did is that we had to be, at the time, you can only be a certain number of people outside. So we had to be careful, and people have to kind of sign themselves in for going there and keep the group very small. It's a massive space, I must say. It's not a tiny piece, but we had to be careful. Not many people were going at the time. But we managed to grow, as you can see, to grow things. And we had a lot of people visiting for walks, because in this country we were allowed to go on a walk. And also, like, a lot of people went at different time, because it's not locked. I mean, unless if you know the combination for the shed, because unfortunately, and even we had like somebody breaking one of the locks, because people steal things from allotments. We had to lock our tools. But if you're a member, you know the combination, and you can unlock the tool, and and you can come, and do a bit of garden. As you can see, that's corn. We grew some corn. And coming on to autumn now, we had some poets coming, and they brought this lovely poem about the garden. And also, I like this caption of Charlotte said, "We've also grown an awful lot of produce this year, despite the strange summer we all had." And there was a moth night, and again, some MPhil students visit the garden to learn about permaculture. And we had some more things by the stone painter. There is, if you go there, the stone painter came and paints stones by the pond. There is a hobbit little home, as in the Hobbit from Tolkien. And she painted this, looks like a dinosaur of some type. And other people kept coming, because that's all you could do really during the lockdown. You could do like come out in the fresh air. And so if you cannot catch the blog name, you can just Google Cambridge Empty Common, and it will come up in Google. And this is the last slide. I'm not sure what's going to happen now, but November is, I wouldn't say it's a very busy month for gardening. There is very little left now, probably some lettuces. And then you can see here a picture of the lovely shed, Rebecca. That's a metal, the Politano, one of the raised beds. There is much more of it. It's a very large area. So you're welcome to go and visit.